Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here. And this week we're going to answer some questions that you guys have that are very common to Blunami. Now, this past summer we've done a lot of traveling. We've seen a lot of you guys all over the country, and it's been a lot of fun and an enjoyable experience. But throughout those visits, there has been a lot of common questions that have come up about what is Blunami and how does it affect you. So we're going to answer some of those questions today to hopefully help you get a better idea of what Blunami actually is. So let's get started. Now, one of the first questions we actually get a lot is the product DCC? A lot of people assume that because you're able to control the decoder with your app on your smart device, and we'll get to that in a second, that it is no longer a DCC-based decoder, but it actually is. Now, the Blunami is actually a Tsunami 2 full-featured decoder, just like you would buy a Tsunami 2, but now with the added benefit of having the optional use of the Bluetooth chip on board. Now, the key here is that in order to run it as a DCC decoder, just like every other Tsunami 2 that you already own, you simply put it on the track and don't connect to the app. So right now on both of these devices sitting here, neither of the locomotives are connected. So when I want to run the diesel locomotive, I'm going to go ahead and grab my NCE throttle. And you can see that I have full DCC control. Now when I start up the throttle, you'll hear that. Now when I come over to my steam locomotive, I'm going to unmute the steam locomotive. And you can see that I have full control of these locomotives using my NCE throttle system. Now I know there's a lot of noise, so just bear with us. Now when I grab my app, you're going to see that I have my Milwaukee Road and my 1460 sitting right here. Now you can see the screenshots playing behind me somewhere. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect to the Milwaukee Road 18, and now we're connected, so now we're going to go ahead and go to operations mode. So now I'm going to blow the horn, and I'm going to start running it, and you can see that it runs in the reverse direction. But now when I go to my throttle here, and I try to blow the whistle, ring the bell, I have no control over it with my DCC system, and especially no motor command. But when I switch back over to my steam locomotive, I do still have full operational control of my steam locomotive, just like I did before with DCC. Now we're going to go back home. Now we're going to connect to the Missouri Pacific 1460. Now we're going to go into operations mode, and now it's going to do its first connect data dump. And once we're connected, now we can move over here to the steam loco, and you can see I have full control of the steam locomotive using my app. But now when I go back to my throttle, I have no more control of the locomotive when I'm using my throttle, my whistle, my bell. Any of these functions are being ignored by the decoder because it's now connected to the app. So it's following all of its commands coming from the Bluetooth connection from the app on your smart device. Now I'll go back and try to run my diesel locomotive, and you can see I have no control as well. And that's because once we connect to the app, the decoder is simply using the track for power. So we're going to go ahead and quiet these guys up here so you can hear me a little better. So you can see that we have full control of the decoder using the app, and we were able to operate both DCC equipped running locomotives as well as Bluetooth equipped locomotives all on the same track. So what this does, this allows you to upgrade your fleet slowly and a little bit at a time. You can install Blunami in a couple of new locomotives, and when you want to run them with your other ones, you just simply put them on the track, run them with your DCC system. You'll never know the difference. But when you want to have that extra added benefit, let's say you want to take them somewhere, or you have somebody new coming to the op session, now they have a throttle in their pocket. Most everybody's got one of these things in their pockets nowadays. And so therefore you can have a throttle to be able to run a couple of locomotives, and as you improve your fleet, then you can now start looking at using your throttles on your phones more than using the regular throttles. But the good news is you have the best of both worlds. Now the next question we get is, can this operate on DC? And the answer is a resounding yes. Because when you supply power to the decoder and you connect to it using your app, Then, as I mentioned with the DCC, your decoder is just simply using the track for power. And so therefore, that can be a DCC signal like I have here in front of me, or in some of the videos that we've posted in the past, you can see that you can power them up with a DC power supply. Just crank the power up. Now, in this case, you'll want to disable analog mode operation, or else the decoder will receive that high command as or high throttle setting as a command. And so therefore, with DC disabled, now your decoder is ignoring that, just using it for power. It allows you to connect to the app and run your locomotive. Now, if you do the math, this actually opens up the door also for onboard battery. So as more and more people are pushing for dead rail operations, this does allow you to now have an onboard battery to control the decoder or power the decoder while you control the decoder through your app. This is fantastic for especially the larger scales, where cleaning the track in order to maintain a good DCC signal becomes very, very labor intensive and has to be done on a regular basis, especially with outside conditions such as rain, snow, or whatever else, dirt, dust, all that stuff. So the good news is that the Blunami opens up the worlds for all of this. So you get all of the Tsunami 2 features that we've talked about in the past, as well as now the connection for Bluetooth, so that now you can talk directly to the decoder using your app. Again, your smart device. Now, as we've mentioned in a recent video, we actually do now have a version of the Android app available. Now, at this moment in time, this particular app only controls one locomotive at a time, as our app developers are working hard to incorporate multi-train, consisting, and all the other benefits of running more than one locomotive from your app. Now, one of the questions that comes up a lot of times also is, how many locomotives can I run from my app? Well, the answer to that is actually as many as you can keep track of. The Bluetooth connection is actually intelligent, but it doesn't keep a constant communication, so those channels are free and open. So they only need to send a command when a function state or a throttle state changes. So the good news is that as long as you can keep track of however many locomotives you want or need to, you can run them with your Blunami app. So if you wanted to consist 10, 15, 20 locomotives together, 30 locomotives together, you can do that with the Blunami app. Now, one of the other common questions we get is the sound is coming from the app. And this is actually a misnomer. The Blunami is actually a full Tsunami 2 decoder, so it does have the amplifier built on board. So you would still want to install the speaker and everything into your model, just like you would a Tsunami 2 installation, but now you get the added benefit of, again, the wireless Bluetooth communication. So the app is not making any sounds, except you can trigger some sounds, such as if you push the button, you hear a click, you can adjust the volume on that, or even there's what he calls a haptic throttle, which as you increase the throttle, it actually vibrates the tablet so that you can feel that you're actually moving the throttle on the decoder. So it really gives you a little bit more fluctuation or flexibility, but the sound is coming out of the locomotive, so you don't have to worry about only being able to hear it from your tablet. Now, one of the comments that we hear a lot is, well, Bluetooth is only good for about 30 feet. Well, this is using a slightly different protocol than what most people are used to hearing on their headphones. And yes, Bluetooth communication using wireless headphones to be able to listen to music or make phone calls, things like that, yes, those do have about a 30-foot range, or what I've been told is about a 10-meter range. Now, what we're using with this is what's called Bluetooth Low Energy. And Bluetooth Low Energy actually has an incredible range. It has a wonderful communication protocol that can get a lot of information back and forth between the decoder and the app back to the decoder in a very fast amount of time. Usually when you're sending a command, the command has to go out and broadcast and it fits into its channel. Well, the Bluetooth Low Energy actually uses a channel surfing communication protocol that allows you up to 37 different channels to communicate. So what that means is if it starts to broadcast on a channel and there's interference, it'll immediately jump to another channel. So you can send all the commands at the same time. So if you have a club full of nothing but Blunami and they're all sending commands at the same time, you should not run into any interference. But when it comes to the range of Bluetooth Low Energy, we've actually advertised this as up to 100 feet. But what we've actually done, if you go back to one of our YouTube videos, and you'll see it linked in the description below, we've actually done a range test where we took it about 144 feet before we lost communication. Now, granted, this was clean line of sight. We were outside with no interference. but that's still a pretty good range. Usually if you go through a wall or let's say a scenery block, you might lose a foot or two of the range of the communication. But for the most part, most layouts, as long as you're walking around with your train, you should never ever have to worry about losing communication with your locomotive. Now, when it comes to multi-channel surfing, now this is a common question that I've heard a lot is people will claim that the Bluetooth or the Blunami is actually interfering with DCC radio throttles, and it's just simply not the case. The Bluetooth Low Energy, as I mentioned, has 37 channels that it will cycle through. So if there's interference on one channel, it'll immediately broadcast to a different channel. So that way you don't have to worry about any radio interference. Most of the people that have brought this question up to me have noticed this in a club environment where there's usually more than one railroad club using the same DCC system with the same wireless throttles. Usually that's where those type of communication protocols will interfere with other layouts. But this uses the same technology as most people with their smartwatches. So if you have anybody in the club that has a smartwatch and that's not interfering with your radio throttles, then the Blunami is going to be just perfect for that application. So guys, one of the other questions I've heard is that people assume that because this has the added benefit of the Bluetooth chip, that some of the functionality of the decoder has actually been taken away. And that couldn't be further from the truth. This is a full Tsunami 2 decoder. Every feature that you have in the Tsunami 2 decoder is present in the Blunami, especially our dynamic digital exhaust. But one of the benefits of the dynamic digital exhaust is the app will actually calibrate this for you. So we can actually move the locomotive and hit the begin calibration process, and that way you'll be able to run your locomotive and it will actually auto calibrate everything that's running. So it does the auto calibration for you simply by using the app. Now when you run your locomotive after the calibration process, you'll be able to hear that dynamic digital exhaust react to your locomotive speed, direction, throttle settings, your load that's on it, and whether it's going uphill or downhill. That dynamic exhaust is going to be dynamically changing the diesel engine as you run along the layout. Now, the other side of this is the steam locomotive will increase the intensity of the exhaust chuff and the tone based on, again, what your locomotive is doing, whether it's working uphill, downhill, and so forth. And the good news is all that is done by the app. So when it comes to limited functionality, there are no limits to what you can do with the Blunami using the app. The only limitations is you and your imagination. Now, the last question I hear a lot, and the question is, well, that's great, but the Blunami is only for newcomers, and I'm well established. I already have a DCC system, so I don't need the Blunami. Well, I'm going to say this to everybody. Now, the Blunami is an added benefit. This has the extra ability of running your locomotives. As we've talked about in this video, when you're running your locomotive, you actually can run it on your DCC system. So as you upgrade your locomotives, you can go to Blunami and install them in there, and then you can just simply run them on your track. Like I said, when you con-system with other Tsunami 2 equipped models or other decoders that you have, you run them with your DCC system, you'll never know the difference. But the added benefit of being able to now also have the wireless communication with your Bluetooth connection means it opens up the door. I know a lot of guys that are out there, they have a layout, but they're expanding the layout or they're adding operations into it and so forth. And sometimes they're limited on how many trains they can run simply because they don't have enough throttles. Well, the good news is, again, using Blunami, everybody's got a throttle in their pocket because they can come over, simply download the Blunami app onto their device, connect to their train that they're assigned, and run the train just like they would any other DCC throttle, just now they're able to use their phone. So it saves you a ton of money in the long run because now you don't have to buy more throttles to set up more operators' jobs on your layout. Now, for the new person coming into the hobby, absolutely this is great for them because they don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on a DCC system or buying wireless throttles or any of that other stuff. They can simply use either the DCC system they already have, or they can simply put it on the track and run it with the Blunami app. Again, it frees up everything. You know, you would have to go through and upgrade all of your locomotives. There's no way to backdate a Tsunami 2 with the Bluetooth chip because it's physically on the board itself. The hardware is actually on the circuit board, so it would require an upgrade. So the question that the Blunami is just for newcomers is really nonsense, because you can enjoy the Blunami on your railroad today. I'm actually in the process of now upgrading a bunch of my locomotives on my layout, simply because all I have at home is a simple wired power cab. And now with some layout expansion and some new jobs and being able to have a lot more real estate covered, the Blunami is going to be perfect, because anybody that comes over, they can simply download the app, connect to the locomotive. As we've shown in videos past, the app will read all the CVs and set all the settings in the app to match what's in the decoder. So therefore, you don't have to do a whole lot of anything. Just simply give them the app and let them run their trains. So hopefully this has helped out for a lot of you guys understanding what Blunami actually is and how you can benefit from using Blunami. Now, we've talked a lot about Blunami on this channel, so you need to make sure you subscribe. If you're not subscribed, why not? We give you lots of information on our channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. You click the notification bell so that you get emailed and text whenever we have new videos posting about a lot of detailed topics such as what we talked about today. But be sure to go back into our archives and search SoundTraxx and the word Blunami to go and watch all the videos that we've posted about the Blunami and some of the cool things that you can do using the app with your trains, so that way you can really see how Blunami is going to benefit you. So that's all I've got this week, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.